There's a lot of different regions in the United States. So if you've ever thought about owning a business or buying a business, you've probably wondered, am I in the right place? And if I'm not, where should I be? So we're going to be ranking the best and the worst regions that you could be a business owner in, whether you're starting one or buying one, mostly focusing on buying one. And we're going to be ranking them on a couple different factors. We're going to be talking about population and economic growth, how expensive it is to buy these businesses, regulatory and tax environment of the businesses, workforce, exit optionality, meaning what kind of buyers exist. Are there a lot of buyers? Industry diversity. Are there a lot of different types of businesses to buy? And recession resilience. Are the businesses in this area, and is this area itself resistant to recessions that come along? And hopefully this can help you better inform yourself on whether you're already in the right place or whether you need to pack up your bags and just go somewhere else. So Ryan, what's the first region that we're going to be ranking here?
So we're going to start off with the Pacific Coast, kind of that larger northwestern part of the country. It's got a lot of diversity to it in where it's settled like geographically, but also in its legalities and kind of how it operates.
Yeah, so this is going to be like California, Oregon, and Washington State. And right off the bat, there's some good and some bad here, right? You've got a really, really difficult regulatory environment. There's a lot of different laws that you're contending with that could make things very difficult in a lot of different industries. And you're going to get wrecked on taxes, just straight wrecked, especially California. You were just going to be paying a ridiculous amount in taxes. But there's some good here too. There's a lot of money in California, meaning if you're raising money from investors for part of your buying of businesses, which is a huge part of it, that's one of the big challenges to buying a business. There's a lot of money in California, so there's a lot of options to raise that capital. There's also a lot of buyers. So if you're owning a business, you're growing it and trying to sell it, there's a lot of options for that resell. Strategic buyers, PE, international capital. A lot of them want assets in California. But I think this is dying down a little bit, and there's a lot of people migrating out of these areas to go elsewhere. So ultimately, we're going to give the Pacific Coast a C tier ranking.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really beat the amount of people there, beat the amount of industry there. There's always somebody buying, always somebody selling, always starting something. So taxes, of course, aside, it's sort of a catch-22. You're going to pay more, but you're going to have a lot more opportunity. But speaking of opportunity, we're actually going to go over to the Midwest area, kind of seeing what's going on out there, because I feel like it's a little bit of a different situation, especially when we talk about population.
Yeah, so moving kind of a little bit further east here, kind of the Mountain West area, we're talking about Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, kind of that area. A lot more states in this region because there is less population density throughout some of these than in those other states that we talked about. And this is where things get a lot better. Population and economic growth, there are a lot of people moving into some of the big cities in these: Phoenix, Denver, Salt Lake City, Boise. These are all really fast growing metro areas. So you've got a lot more people. With more people comes more economic opportunity. That's just how it goes. And there's a lot of other things going for these areas too. Great workforce with that growing population. There's also a lot of recession resistant. These have just held up better and better over time. So a lot of great things going for this. I think some of the other challenges that we talked about in the Pacific Coast don't quite apply to these areas quite as much. So we're actually going to give the Mountain West area an A tier ranking. There are some better regions. I think it's a really, really good region, but we're going to give it an A tier ranking.
I'm going to push back on that. I'd call it a solid B region. It's still developing. It's not proven itself yet in my mind as a dominant industry player. Like I said, people move a lot of places. People also leave. I mean, even though Florida has had a lot of people leave, there's still a lot of people going. So the state has sticking power. And also the Midwest to me is everything that's between California and Ohio. Mountain West be darned.
This is more the Mountain West.
I will call it all the Midwest. I don't care. That on a map, that is the Midwest.
We've got that coming.
I know. I'm just saying to anybody watching, that's the Midwest from everything from between California and New Jersey. But again, I would put it a B tier because I don't think it's really developed into that kind of larger economic powerhouse that we are talking about when it comes to, say, the other areas. I think it's good, but we got to see more development. I mean, Can you think of like 7 businesses in that region that really are like large corporations?
Not off the top of my head, but I think it's moving further and further. But you know what? This is what checks and balances are for.
While we're here.
So what's our next region that we're diving into?
Trying to remember off the top here.
Next, it looks like we got
Texas Southwest.
Texas in the Southwest. Now, this is where things get really interesting. This is one of those really, really good regions that you want to be in. You know, when you talk about some of the major factors that influence our decision, lots of population and economic growth, especially Texas. People are just flooding to this state. You know, one of the one kind of ding I would give these areas is it can be a little bit more expensive in some of these areas that are growing fast to get businesses. You might pay a big multiple to get into them, but these areas are incredibly business friendly and tax friendly. Just that is one of the biggest things going for them. That's what brings a lot of people there for business. There's also a lot of money in these areas now. So there's a lot of opportunity to raise capital, to resell the business. I think these hold up really well in recessions, and there's a lot of diversity to the industries that are available. So this is actually the first one that we're going to give an S tier ranking to. This is really, you know, especially Texas, this is kind of the creme de la creme. And, you know, we might have some other S tiers coming. We'll see what happens, but this is a great place to be if you're trying to buy a business.
I think it stays S tier for the time being. I don't know how long it'll last. I think the Arizona boom is kind of over, even though it's become sort of an incubator for startups as well. It's like the I'm going to say poor man's Silicon Valley. And yes, Texas is doing almost all, if not the entirety of the heavy lifting for this entire region. So I'd say it's S, but it's on notice. I think it could very easily slip down to an A because, again, not terribly populous in New Mexico and basically nothing happening out there. In Oklahoma, I mean, how many times do you hear about Oklahoma outside of college sports? I mean, it's dragging it down. We need to see something happen out there.
And we've got some of those states coming, but next we're going to go over.
We're going to go down to the southeast. We're going to go see some of the more, I'll say, hotter, swampier places.
And some of these places are going to be swampy. We've got some other swampy areas coming, but specifically in the southeast Sun Belt, we've got states like Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And this is going to be another S tier ranking. There is lots of population growth, especially Florida. And I think you could say some of these areas are A tier, some are S tier. I could concede that point, but in general, I would say it's going to be an S tier because states like Florida, like Texas, are very friendly to business owners. That being said, the one thing I'll say about some of these areas is as they're growing quickly, especially in Florida, the competition is going up too. So you might have to pay kind of a hefty multiple to get in. So like Ryan was saying, I would say maybe an S tier, but with a notice that it could become A tier in the not too distant future.
And I'm going to disagree. I think this is solidly S tier. I mean, you don't talk business if you're not talking Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. I mean, the only other cities that come into play there are probably Austin, Los Angeles, and New York City. I mean, it's got the 3 heavy hitters of probably a list of 5. So you're going to be hard pressed to get to find that one slipping unless something catastrophic happens.
And again, just a standout from some of these areas compared to some of those big cities like New York City, California, is just they're a lot more business friendly. And you can't discount that. Having lower tax rates or less taxes to pay, having less regulatory challenges, these are just things that make it easier to buy and start a business and to actually make it. That's just the truth. So
we're going to head on down, I think. Let's go what I'm going to call the true South. The dirty South,
dirty deep South.
Yep, Ludacris himself. So let's hit those states. Let's hit our Alabamas. Let's hit our true Trident. Let's hit the goodness.
Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas. Yeah, this is when people say the South. This is what they're talking about. So, a couple things going on with this one. This is where things get shifty again. You know. You've got some good things going for it, like you might not pay as high of multiples as you might pay in some big cities. You might be able to get a business and buy a business a little bit cheaper here. So it makes it a little bit more accessible, lower barrier to entry. But that's about all you've got going for you. You know, there's a lot of different things that are kind of headwinds here. These have, I would say, less population and economic growth for the most part than some of these other places that we've talked about. And with that comes just less options. You're not going to have as much exit optionality. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to find buyers. The workforce and the quality of the workforce is not quite as high. And, you know, people might be mad at us for this, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. There's a lot of concentration on specific areas, so there's not as much diversity to choose from. So it doesn't attract quite as diverse of a range of business owners. So I'm tempted to give this one, I don't know, a C tier, probably, maybe B for certain states. Like Tennessee might be a little bit of a standout here, maybe more of a B, even going towards an A.
Tennessee is solidly A tier, and then Alabama, Arkansas, once the industry left, definitely saw the hit. I think overall, I think C plus. I think it's got B minus potential, but C plus easily because Tennessee is far and ahead. Kentucky is developing. Louisiana too. I mean, Louisiana has they have New Orleans. They have a bustling tourism sector, which is huge. And you know, a lot of major college sports there. So there's some sort of like community and population, but Tennessee is doing the heavy lifting, followed closely by Kentucky.
Now, next, we're going to move on to a different area.
Midwest Part 2 is what I'm going to call this.
Midwest Part 2. So this is, I'll call this the Mid-Atlantic. This is states like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, D.C., Delaware, kind of that New England area. And so
let's slow up. Okay, so we're going to stop right there. All right, so first of all, that's not New England. That is not New England.
I'm wrong. New England.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the Northeast as a whole. This is more we'll call it, you know, tri-state and friends is what we'll call this one.
Friends, yeah. As a New Jersey resident, he's not going to let me get away.
I'm just saying that there is a distinction.
This is the Mid-Atlantic, and this is where things get good again. These are.
I would disagree, but go ahead.
He disagrees because, you know, he's got his feelings about the way people are up there. There's a lot of intensity up there.
The people are great. The income tax is abhorrent, and the property tax is even worse. Don't you dare come at me.
And that is true, especially in states like New Jersey, where Brian is from. You get
number 2 property tax in the state, baby.
You get wrecked on taxes. You really do. So the regulatory and tax environment is the biggest knock here, and this is what I would say keeps it out of the very top for our rankings. That being said, I mean, like, you've got some absolute standout money in these areas. If you're trying to raise capital, New York is the finance capital of maybe the world. So if you're trying,
a lot of other things I can't say on here, but yeah.
That too. And so if you're trying to raise money and buy businesses, I mean, this is the place to be. There's also incredible diversity. There's more amount of businesses in these areas per population
and people.
Per area,
New Jersey is the most densely populated state. There's like 22 people per square mile. God only knows how that math works. But
when I've run the numbers on just the number of businesses available in these areas, it's astounding. So there's a lot of opportunity in these areas. There's a lot of available workforce to staff your businesses, great diversity. So there's some incredible things going for it, but we're going to have to knock it for the tax stuff. It's a big challenge. So I'm going to say we have to have one. And I think Ryan's going to push back on this, but I want to give it an A tier.
I will allow A tier only because what saves it is, number one, like you said, volume of people. Like there's somebody will buy what you're selling. There's somebody who, there is never enough lawn care or snow plows or HVAC, or you can't have enough people actually to do work because there's always somebody needing it at every hour, every minute. So like you can start anything, you can do pretty decently if you just do a little bit of extra work to get your name out there. Tax situation though, there's a reason that people across the country form their companies in Delaware. Delaware is the god tier state for taxes and business formation.
And that warrants saying, if you're in these areas surrounding Delaware, it's a lot easier to make the case that you form your business in Delaware, that you're running elsewhere. And
people do it all the time. Even people here do it.
Yeah, people do it from all over, and so there's ways around some of these challenges. We'll say it that way.
But not everybody can be formed in Delaware, unfortunately.
True. So there are some real challenges. There are ways to get around some of these challenges, but they're not available to everyone. So it's an A tier, but it comes with its challenges, and that's what kind of keeps it out of the S tier.
Yes, solid. Yes.
So what do we have next?
Now we have New England. Now we have actual New England. The mass holes will tell you that.
So we're talking about Massachusetts. We're talking about Connecticut. We're talking about Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. These are kind of your northeasterners all the way up there, and kind of down the coast a little bit. And it's kind of just, there's some standout areas, but it's kind of just mid across the board, is what I would say here.
You have Boston, Massachusetts as a whole is pretty densely populated, good communities out there. Rhode Island is very beautiful, but not a lot of space for you to really do a lot of stuff. Connecticut has money, but the worst people ever. And then Maine and everybody up there, it's very wooded, a very kind of rural area. So there's not a ton of opportunities beyond what you already have. So it's difficult. Taxation wise, it's pretty mid. It's like the rest of the Northeast is around meh. But a couple standouts there with Vermont and Maine. But you're going to have a harder time getting started than if you go, an hour and a half down the road to New York or one of the more populated places to kick things off.
That's right. And if you're in some of these areas, I just find myself thinking, why wouldn't you move to some of the states nearby that are a little bit more opportunity dense and have better choice of businesses? I think a lot of people are moving out of these areas. I mean, that goes for
Vermont is gorgeous.
That goes for the Mid-Atlantic as well. But a lot of people are moving to, our S tiers like Texas and the Southeast Sunbelt. So you've kind of got like declining opportunity for business in some areas and some tax challenges. Everything else kind of mid across the board. There is some good money in some areas. It's not quite as good as some of the other areas we've talked about, like Ryan said.
Yeah, Connecticut's rich. Connecticut has like rich areas. So if you're looking for funding, that's the place to
go. I'm tempted to give it, I think it's a C or it's a B. I'm tempted to give it a B just because it does have some strong areas, but I feel like it's more of a C. I'll let you be you're from up there.
Because like Boston just goes so hard.
It does.
I'm gonna put it B. I'd say we give it a B minus, but its grade's about to slip down to a C if it doesn't get its act together.
That's right. So
Connecticut's got more money than God, and Boston has a lot. It probably goes New York, Boston, Philly. I would say if you're three like big Northeast cities, and being ranked number 2 definitely gives it a bump.
So we'll keep it a B minus for now. I think that's fair. So what do we have next? We've only got 3 regions left.
Well, maybe the more northern Midwest or the
kind of like the Great Lakes region.
Yeah, North Midwest. It's Michigan and friends.
So we've got like Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minneapolis or Minnesota, and Indiana, kind of that type of area. So Great Lakes area, I think this is a pretty good area, especially you talk about places like Chicago. But there's a little bit of a mix throughout here. I'm thinking kind of a B tier for this area. I think you're not going to deal with quite as bad of regulation and tax situations as you would deal with in some of the other areas we just talked about, like New England and the Mid-Atlantic, New York, and those places. It's still going to be some challenges there. I think the workforce is still solid throughout a lot of areas here. There's some good pockets of money in some areas, especially Chicago. But I think it's not quite as good as some of those better areas we talked about. I don't think it quite gets an A tier.
No, I think B tier is the correct play here. We see a lot of up and up when it comes to Detroit, and Chicago is trying to get itself back on track for the most part. Michigan is a sleeper state as a whole. North and South Dakota, they're not adding a lot, but they're also not taking away a lot. So I would say regulation wise, they're very friendly. Ohio, obviously, having a lot of, trying to bring back a lot of the industry, which love the attempt. I love the motivation, but it will be, yet to be seen. So I like that. I think Milwaukee still has a healthy production basis. So I think we could see that coming back if stuff kind of lines up.
So now we've got the Heartland. This is
the Midwest.
The Midwest. This is your flyover states.
I mean, look, Iowa's really nice if you give it a chance.
We've got Iowa, Kansas, Missouri. We've got North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma. Probably some ones that I'm forgetting because they're flyover states. Listen, I think it's probably one of the cheapest markets for businesses. You're probably going to be able to find some lower multiples.
Yeah, this is your 3 DVDs for $1 bin that you used to see at Walmart back in the day.
I think one of the good things going for it, though, aside from being able to get in a little bit cheaper, is I think it's going to be a really good kind of regulatory and tax environment here compared to some of the other areas we've talked about. But one of the things that I just can't get over is there's a lot of the concentration is just, and this could be a good thing depending on what industry you're in. A lot of the concentration is just going to be on your agriculture, logistics, blue collar type of stuff. So if you're not trying to get into one of those areas, you don't have a background in that, you just don't have a lot of diversity to choose from, and you don't have a lot of workforce to choose from.
And you live and die by your industry. So you serve that industry is down, your business is down. So you got to pick your battles. Also, I thought North and South Dakota were in the last one, but I guess they're in this one. But again, they don't really subtract anything. They don't add much at this point in time. They're more just military staging points. So they got bases on them for all I know.
I'm thinking there's some real good things going for this area too, though. But it's kind of mid everywhere else. I'm gonna say C tier.
C tier just for opportunity, just for I say opportunity. Everything else about it is actually pretty good. They're regulatory and tax stuff. They're actually not terrible. They're pretty business friendly for businesses there.
Now, I would say it gets a much stronger ranking if you are in some of those blue collar areas already. But this leaves us with one more region. There's one that we haven't talked about. We talked about the Continentals, but what does that leave?
That just leaves us our little fragmentations, 49 and 50, Alaska and Hawaii.
Alaska and Hawaii. So our non-continentals, this is where I think it really gets into the territory of like, you've got to be in something pretty niche to make it work well here. There's some good areas of business that might be like specific pockets, but man, I would not want to move to one of these states specifically to do business. I think it scores kind of low on everything we've talked about. You don't have really good buyer markets to buy businesses in these. So it makes it difficult to get capital to buy a business in the first place. The value proposition is not really there. Not a lot of diversity of different industries or workforce, not a lot of population and economic growth. The regulatory and tax environment is decent, but it can be very expensive to operate in. I think this is going to be the one that we have to put in D tier.
And it's no fault of the regions themselves. It's just more or less a product of Hawaii is a chain of small islands, or a chain of islands. And like, there's only so much you can do on an island. There's only so many businesses that could be served, and so many things that you could do. So obviously, there's X amount. The pool's limited. It's also very expensive, given that everything has to get imported. Alaska, same thing. A lot of imports, a lot of stuff coming in, expensive way of life, cheap in other ways, expensive in others, but very dark, very cold, very niche in what needs to be done around there and what people are actually, needing. So I know a lot of people who've moved out there due to very large offers, because they need to incentivize people to move there. But I don't think there's a reason we don't see anyone selling a business in Anchorage or, you know, Honolulu on any business site ever.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some like we said, there's some niche plays in there that might apply specifically to your situation, but that hits the bottom of our list. So that's our ranking of the best and worst regions, 10 regions of the U.S. that you could buy a business in. Let us know what you think in the comments, though. Maybe you got something absolutely printing money in Alaska or Hawaii, or maybe you're going bankrupt in Texas or the Southeast. Let us know if you've got a business in one of these regions and you disagree totally. Maybe we got it completely wrong, but that's our story and we're sticking to it. And if you want to find us, our names are on the screen. Find us on LinkedIn and shoot us a message if you want us to cover something like this or rank something like this. We love to talk about business buying and selling. We do this every Tuesday night right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see you on the next one.